Hello, world, and welcome to Creating Light with Kelsey. It starts. It starts, guys. This is the episode where we do uncomfortable things. I, oh my gosh. So I'm re-releasing some episodes, quite a few episodes. But this is just one from 2021. And current day is October 2024. So almost almost 4 years have passed since this episode originally came out, and then I took it down in like 2022 or something like that, and it's just been in hiding. And if you listened last week, we discussed how I'm no longer hiding, or how I am coming out of hiding, the journey of being seen again. So, this is sharing parts of my trauma story, how it broke up in 2021. I shared three different episodes of things that happened in childhood and adulthood. And from there, I'll come back on the podcast when I continue to tell my story and be telling it in real time because from my knowledge, stuff in 2022, that's kind of where I stopped. And I actually I never to this day, I never finished really telling fully finished, really fully all the things telling my story. And it's one that deserves to be told and to be seen and to be witnessed because it's one of triumph. And I had a moment before coming on today that I needed to be because this episode today is talking about fifth grade self. And so I needed to take a moment to be with her before I stepped on to record and apologize. Apologize for silencing her, which is ironic because she was silenced at that time back then, and then I'm the one that did it to her in real time as far as taking her story down and taking her voice down and no longer allowing her to be seen because like I told you last week, the shame came to the forefront. The shame was then ruling my present moment because I was avoiding shame and not allowing myself to feel it and nurture it and hold it and just let it pass through me. I was like pushing it back down, and then it came out through actions of being shameful of myself in my past, and then I was just shoving all these things and these parts of myself and in back in the dark and back in the closets and taking things down off a public forum when yeah, my soul came here to like speak on this, so then I was shoving my soul down essentially. So yeah, had a moment, danced, cried, talked to her, apologized, and then she was speaking to me. And this is like inner child work, parts work. If you're familiar with that, it can sound uh a little bananas. And sometimes I sometimes think I am a little bananas, but this shit works. But yeah, I was just talking to her and apologizing that I took her voice away and that I wasn't allowing her to be seen and that I felt shameful of her. And there's nothing that is shameful. Like there's no reason for her to not be seen, and there's no reason for her to be in the dark. And then as I was dancing with her, because somatic movement stuff, and she was speaking back to me of how she forgives me and how she never gave up on me and how she always believed in me and that we would be here, that we would find our way back. And well, then I lost it. I was just like crying and holding myself and swaying back and forth. And it was very beautiful. I needed to make contact with her. And before I could fully, like, authentically come back and record this and be in a centered, grounded state instead of speaking from a headspace. Like I'm speaking from my body and my heart. A couple things that I did want to note and speak about, just because I did re-listen to the episode myself before popping back on here to re-release it. Very potent, point past Kelsey talked about is how she said that when a child comes to you with something that is happening to them and then they are not protected by the adult that they had brought it to, they will most likely stop coming to you. That is so true. And the thing that's so sad is a lot of times when children come to us with things of how they're being hurt or not being treated right, they don't really have the vocabulary to describe the severity of a situation if they are facing abuse, because that's what happened to me. I didn't have the vocabulary to describe to my parents what was going on. I just called it bullying because I was like, these people are being mean to me. And it was way more than them being mean. But I had no idea what else to say. And then from there, nothing changed, and protection wasn't provided from my parents or from the school or from the teachers. Like, this is gonna make sense later. But then I stopped speaking up because it was like, okay, I brought it to you, nothing happened, trust is broken. Like with children, that it's very fast on how they lose trust and how they would rely on you and look up to you. And that's why the little things really do matter with children and they add up. But then the big things, it's just kind of it's a blatant thing of like, okay, never mind. No one's got me in trauma situations anyway, and that's from my experience and stuff that I've witnessed with clients. Like it's pretty through and through in that way. So when a child comes to you of how they are in pain or something is going on, I invite you to ask more questions, to get more curious, to make sure that it's not something more severe because they might not have the vocabulary to describe that. And if you miss that, then yeah, there's just a lot more damage that has potential to take place. Oh, yeah. And this other little note that I wrote down, which uh that first offense is crucial to step it up because they need you. They need you. And the other little update, re-listening to it, I could tell. This is a weird place to be, you know. I'm re-releasing episodes. You're listening to both at the same time. You're listening to current Kelsey, past Kelsey, and it's like it's a time warp. And just so we know, time is an illusion and healing and all of that is in the now, which is kind of what where I made the contact with my inner child before I popped on today, was how she knew that this moment was always here and that it would happen and that she believed in me. And it was just the present moment, Kelsey, that would experience different waves of doubt. And that's the beauty of the journey. And that's why I'm here to communicate and to share the story and to be a testament and to be an example of that it's not forever, that this happened, that it was a long road of repair and recovery, but here I am today on the other side of that, and things are way different. That I wasn't stuck, that I'm not stuck in the illusion of what trauma brings in that state of life. And you'll see how that changes as you continue to listen because it just is. So that's what I'm excited about, and to allow myself to fully be seen again is that you get to witness that. Like you'll listen, you'll feel the change in how I talk and how I relate and how I share stories and how the stories themselves change from like current experiences. It's really beautiful. And the last thing, the last little update to give is I know more now about this situation in 2024 compared to what I knew in 2021, because in in 2021 is when I started the repair process with my parents. And so we've been talking about this more and I know more information because there's a lot that I had actually forgotten and what I actually share in this episode from the past. So I'll probably share that later. I think for now I just want this to be as is, but I do know more information. And the relationship that I have with my parents is actually becoming a relationship and not with this uh stuff in the middle. Stuff in the middle of the past emotional residue of unfelt feelings, of unsaid things. And I can't even fucking put that into words right now. But back then, that was also not there in 2021. It was starting, and it was very much like Hurt Kelsey coming in and saying, like, it was both. Like, I was opening my eyes to see, like, oh, it's time to start the repair process because I don't want to not ever have a relationship with my parents. Because at that point in 2021, I was going on like years of not really talking to them. Hey, uncomfy stuff. That's, yeah, family stuff is tough, man. But that has also dramatically changed and shifted to present moment. Then, another story for another day. But I wanted to give those updates within this 4-year gap of re-releasing stuff. And this story is going to continue to be shared. Like I have a lot to say about this year of my life in fifth grade Kelsey. And she is the foundation of who I am today in all of it, and not in a disempowered victim sense. And that's the difference, and that's the transmutation process that gets to take place when you face your darkness and you hold it and you take accountability and just not reject it because it is you. But that's it. That is all the updates. And when the episode ends from the past, blast from the past, the episode is over. I'm not going to come back on and chit chat because there ain't nothing to say. So thank you for being here and thank you for witnessing me. Welcome to Creating Light with Kelsey. I am an art therapist who believes that the only way we can create light in our lives is by having the courage to feel our darkness. On this show, I will discuss trauma and ways to heal through modalities like art therapy, sexuality, and spirituality. I have been called to share my story to show that even in the midst of pain, I have found purpose. So join me as I continue the healing journey and create light within while feeling the darkness. I hope it inspires you to do the same. Hello, world, and welcome again to another episode of Creating Light with Kelsey. Now is the time where I tell parts of my trauma story. And I'm going to be honest, I am feeling really shaky right now. I have told my trauma story before to people close in my life and even to strangers in person and online, to like hundreds of strangers. But it's different when it's on a podcast, and it can essentially be out in the ethers till the end of time and forever. So it's a little different, and I'm feeling the difference and how wide of a range this could reach people. And it feels a little heavy, and I'm not gonna lie, but that's the point. And this is who I am. I dive into the heavy stuff, so I'm showing up, being real, that this is hard. Talking about your pain and your trauma is not easy, but that's life. And more people need to be doing this. So I'm having the courage to be here and be a way shower for other people in their journey. So my trauma is sexual abuse. In the next few episodes, that's what I will be talking about, and the specific incidences, not going into too much detail, but telling the story because it's all relative. So I'll start right now in saying trigger warning, and I'll give a trigger warning in the other episodes as well. My sexuality was built on abuse. I didn't really know anything different. So it started in 5th grade. I had moved to a small town of around 1,500 people, and the entire 5th grade class was literally one classroom's worth of children. And I was the new kid in town where new kids barely existed. For some reason, I immediately became popular, which it quickly shifted from people wanting to be my friend to boys wanting to be in a relationship with me. So there was about 20 boys in the class, and most of them sexually harassed me all year. And I just remember constantly thinking, if this is what popularity is, I don't want it.
It felt like on a daily basis for the entire school year, I would have a boy catch me alone and come up to me and describe to me what they wanted to do to me sexually. And they were constantly talking about my body like it was an object for pleasure, that I was not even a person. So I felt trapped a lot. And I did tell my parents that I was being bullied because I didn't know what the words sexual harassment were as a 10 and 11-year-old. But I do remember I do remember nothing coming of the conversation. I told my parents that I was being bullied and that the boys were being mean to me, and it's not their fault. I'm to a point now where I don't blame them, but nothing came of it, and it was a societal programming. It was of a response like, "Oh, boys will be boys." When I didn't have the tools as a child to communicate that, I felt afraid almost every day of my life. Then I think the teacher was informed of this bullying, but it is also so tough as a teacher to handle a bullying situation because she ultimately can't control what the boys do, and then they just got sneakier. But again, the adults didn't really understand the gravity of the situation. It wasn't just bullying, it was constant sexual harassment. I couldn't even go into detail with my parents about these boys and what they were saying to me because sex was so shamed in my household, because I grew up from a Christian background, and at that age, the only thing that they told me with regarding sex was that it was for marriage and that it was bad if you had sex before marriage. So how could I tell them all these sexual things that were occurring in the 5th grade? I didn't have a voice then. And then when those boys were continuously coming at me, they were chipping away at my voice, which I was truly afraid for my safety. Then during the last week of school, a boy said something sexually that they wanted to do to me, and then one of my friends heard it. So God bless her soul, and she told me that this wasn't right. And I just didn't think anything of it. She said that we needed to tell a teacher, and I remember trying to brush it off, saying that this happens all the time, but she insisted. Then I told her how essentially I didn't have the strength to tell an adult, because at the time, looking back and reflecting on it, I don't think adults realize that when a child tries to tell you something that's happened to them and then they still end up not being protected, that child will most likely stop telling you when further abuse happens. I mean, the whole thing was just an unfortunate situation, but that was my reality. I just felt like I wasn't ever going to be protected, so I just needed to get through the school year and survive, because this was life. But that friend set up a private meeting with our teacher, and she told her she only heard one incident, and from that one incident, I just remember the look on that teacher's face. She was mortified, and I'm over here like, dude, this happens all the time throughout the day. So if you're mortified just from hearing this one incident, my brain didn't even want to register like how awful it was through the whole year. So that's kind of, I just suppressed it. But it was at the end of the year, so it kind of sucked because the teacher couldn't really do anything at that point because it was the end of the year and it was about to be summer break. And then we ended up moving to a completely different state to get away from the abuse. Experiencing sexual harassment for an entire year of my childhood was fundamental to my being. It became a part of my program, which led to further abuse in the future. And like I said, I'll go into that in other episodes. But I adopted the belief, which was then supported by society, that boys treated me this way because they liked me, and that this was just boys being boys, and it was something that I needed to accept instead of fight against, then in some twisted way that I should like it, that I should like this behavior and attention, that it was okay for girls to be treated this way, and that it was normal. Now I'm here to say, fuck that. It is time to rise up and change the narrative. This is not okay. This whole societal programmed conditioning of this belief in the way of talking to young girls and women in such a sexual way, because I don't even know. I just don't get it anymore. It's like, no, this is not okay. And then this past year and a half of my current life, I've started diving in 100% to reconstruct my sexuality It has been a really dark yet liberating journey, and I have come so far. I'm regaining my voice because this was the beginning of my voice being taken away, and me letting outside factors take my voice away and take my power, and that I should just take it because this is how it is and this is the world we live in. And that's not my reality anymore. I have come so far. I'm regaining my voice. There's still significant healing in store for me. I mean, spoiler alert, the healing never ends, but with each new layer of pain I get to work through, I feel myself becoming stronger, becoming the person that I was, meant to be all along. That the abusers did take my spirit, but I'm taking it back. I am doing a lot of inner child work and have been the last year while I was doing my own study on my own trauma, because little Kelsey, that's what I call her, little Kelsey inside. I mean, no one was there to stand up for her and to protect her. So when these same emotions and feelings come back up, when I'm triggered and take me back to the unsafety feeling, especially when alone, because a lot of this happened, like the boys would catch me alone to say these things. So then it was kind of this, oh, it's not safe to be alone kind of thing, which happens a lot for women. I mean, we're told that all the time. Oh, don't walk alone at night. Make sure, have your keys in between your hand. Do this and this. You have to protect yourself. You're responsible for your own protection, and we have to act this way because that's just how other people are. No, how about those other people change the narrative and do their own healing so we can all live in this cohesive environment of love instead of fear, because that's not how life is supposed to be. Whew, okay, yeah, I didn't even realize I was talking for over 10 minutes. Here we are. I'm feeling all hot and sweaty, and this is good. I am here to tell the story, and I have a lot to say. So, taking it back, I do want to talk about how I am feeling now when looking back on the abuse from 5th grade. So one, I don't blame the teacher, I don't blame my parents, and I don't blame the boys anymore, which took a long time to get there. There was a lot of anger, like, why was no one there for me? Why didn't you protect me? And everyone is in their own reality. So I've also been learning about abusers and their story, kind of reading on articles and stuff about it. And I'm getting to a point of understanding that people, like, hurt people. So the abusers were also hurting and were also living in an unstable or unloving environment in some way, or not supportive. I don't really know their story, but that was their environment, and then they were projecting it onto me, because what 5th grader knows this much about sex to where they're coming on to another 5th grader? So it just puts things into perspective. And in my study, I had learned about, so this will probably be a theme about blame, because it was such a huge thing for me. So in my study, I had realized that blame is a form of my own projection and a form of avoidance. So if I'm sitting here and blaming other people and blaming abusers for the hurt, which they did, they fucking hurt me, but if I am here constantly blaming them, then I'm actually avoiding how I'm feeling with the abuse and with myself, and what do I do now, because now I am safe, and now it is my responsibility to heal and move forward. Because if I'm sitting here in the blame all the time, then they still have those parts of me that they never should have had in the first place. Then with my teacher, she didn't really know. She had no information to actually go off on to protect me. And when my friend took us and had that private meeting, she did try to do something because she understood the gravity of the situation. So I believe she would have known earlier if maybe I went to her with it. specifically and with my parents, maybe something would have happened differently. But, I don't know. And I can't sit here and dwell on that either, of the what ifs, which that was another huge story that I got to work through, was um, thinking if things were different, then I wouldn't have been abused, which that just goes into a whole other spiral of thinking, because I just don't know. I'm just left with what happened. I can't dwell on the what ifs, because it just doesn't change anything. Then with my parents, I am actually right now in the midst of deeply healing all together with them, because I've been doing my own healing around this and this story, and now I'm bringing them into the healing, which it took a long time for me to even get there. So for me in my healing journey, I felt like I needed to work on my own sexual abuse and that own story before I could let them in on what had happened and what had gone on, to have the tough conversations that we needed to have. But I needed to do my own healing journey, so then when I went to them, I didn't need them to hold space for me, that we were just having a conversation. But I've been getting to a point in understanding that they also did the best they could with the tools that they had. So we didn't really talk about sex and sexuality at home, so then I didn't have the tools to tell them that, hey, these sexual things are happening to me and I don't know what to do about it. All I knew is that I felt a lot of shame, because that's all was portrayed, not just from them, but from society in general. Like, sex is very shamed in our society. So then when it happens to a little kid, how the heck am I supposed to react? Because I have no fucking clue. I don't know what's even happening in life. I'm 10, I'm 11. So they were doing the best that they could. And the best that they could at that time was they knew kind of surface level of what happened, and they didn't really know how to react to it. So the way that they thought to keep me safe was to move to a different state, which we did, and it did keep me safe, but then we didn't talk about it. So now we're getting to a place in the healing journey, it's becoming a ripple effect. So I'm healing myself to then go back and heal the inner child, and then go back and heal this relationship with my parents when this abuse happened, but we hadn't talked about it yet, and now we're talking about it, and then it's rippling out to them and then our family. And on a really big grand scheme of things, in a lot of ways in my family, I am the black sheep, and I am here breaking generational patterns and trauma. So I'm realizing that as far as avoiding things and avoiding talking about sex and having a lot of shame and being insecure, this is a pattern within my family. And then it was passed on to me, to where I got in a situation where I directly experienced those things through abuse. And now I'm sitting here to heal it, then healing it with my parents, and then it's just going to go outward. Now I'm feeling a deep passion within to work with preteens and talk about healthy sexuality and what is consent, because a lot of people, young girls and even young women, don't even understand the concept of consent and boundaries and what happens with that stuff. I know that I used to think that things just happen and then we let it happen, and oh, here we are, we're doing this. That's kind of fucked up. So I am changing that, and because I experienced this as a child, I am now wanting to pay it forward and provide the service for other preteens, so we can change the story and change the collective for other people to realize that this isn't normal, and we can build up with a healthy sexuality from the beginning. And it's not weird to talk to children about sex, because sexuality is our life force energy, and it comes and is woven into every aspect of life. So there you have it. Me starting to tell my story in more detail, because that has also never happened. Like, I've told my story, and as far as just saying, like, I have survived sexual abuse throughout my life, but I haven't really gone into detail. So this is like the first time I'm going into detail about it, and I feel like it is really important to talk about how I was feeling and what kind of programs happened as a result of it, to kind of break it down, so then when I talk about the healing journey and what has come after, that it makes sense and it's all cohesive. And I've been there and I get it. Like, I've experienced trauma, and this is just the beginning of it. Like I said, so this happened in 5th grade, and then the next couple episodes I'll talk about the other incidences, and then I will move forward and talk about how the healing happened and where it started from there. So there is a light in all of this, even when we have survived trauma, that you have the power to rediscover your light. And if you need help figuring out where to start your healing journey, you can reach out and I can try and give you resources. I will also be sharing self-care tools in the future and anything like that people can practice, and just know that I believe in you and everyone can heal. So now it's time to believe in yourself. Thank you for listening and creating light with me. If you enjoyed the show, spread the love by subscribing, leaving a review, or share it with a friend. If you're related to this episode, reach out and let me know. Ways to connect are listed in the show notes. And until next time, remember, when we see the light in ourselves, we create light in others.